Hello YouTube, this is, well, I shouldn't say YouTube, I should technically say hello. Just leave it as that. This is rather simple. I don't know if you're going to be watching this on YouTube or if you're watching it on the website that I made, and that took some time. That was about, I don't know, 2 hours as the clock rotates. Anyways, I'm trying to think what to say here. I think about a lot of things quite a bit, and I find myself talking to myself, thinking and saying things out loud, and I felt that was a bit of a waste. Like, certainly, I mean, certainly I get a lot out of thinking and questioning things, but, you know, like, because also I work, I have a job. I program computers, currently. And I like to take walks. I take walks to kind of clear my head, to kind of think from time to time. And I notice that I like to talk out loud. At least I find myself talking out loud while I'm walking. And I gain a lot of perspective by thinking and talking and pacing. But I felt it was kind of a waste. It was a bit of an inefficiency to, to walk and to vocalize my thoughts without anyone hearing them. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, there's some times where I just don't care. Like, I just frankly don't care. I don't want anyone to listen to anything. I don't want anyone to know anything about anything that I am thinking. But there are some things that when I'm thinking or when I'm talking about things, I really think they could be beneficial, or at least it would be interesting to someone. I might provoke thought to someone else's mind. And if it were to provoke thought to someone else, well, they might watch it. Well, I guess they'd have to watch it for something for me to say to provoke their thoughts. But it might spur discussion. And so that's really what this is. This is a first video of many, maybe. We'll see if I like it. This is really, I'm doing this purely for the, well, not so much for the fun. Some things in life aren't fun but are necessary. Actually, a lot of things can be like that. But, I totally forgot what I was saying. That happens with me from time to time. Well, you can just rewind it and see what I was talking about. Anyways, so I made a website. And I figured that I wanted to, I called it Talks with G. And I guess the thing to think about with that, the reason why I named it that was, well, it's simple, somewhat marketable, it's easy to remember. But the word talk, you know, talk kind of, it suggests a conversation. You're talking with someone. No one really talks very often with someone else, or excuse me, with no one else. You only talk with other people, and that's kind of what I wanted to say, but it's talks with G, so it's plural. So there will be many of these things. I don't know how many, they will just exist, and whatever there are, that's what it will be. But I find myself wanting to, I think quite a bit, and part of it is because I'm ADHD, and my mind kind of wanders and is kind of creative at times, and especially because, you know, I work in an office environment and I code, I'm a programmer currently, and, you know, when you program things, I mean, you're constantly, you don't talk to anyone, by the way. I mean, I go days without talking to coworkers that live and work within 20 feet of me, easily. But I find myself kind of in these kind of lulls and in these huge spikes of thought and expression and conversation or spurts of things I feel I want to talk about. And I was curious to do this. I wanted to see if anyone would like this, if anyone would be interested in some of the things I'm talking about. And certainly I'd like to be interested with some of the things you're thinking about and talking about. And that's why there's many, I created a website that has many avenues of conversation with me. At least there's two. You can submit a question for me, or you can just simply contact me. But if it's anything, honestly, like in this kind of, you know, whatever, like, I'm not, if there's something that you want to ask me and you think it might be a video, you want to have a conversation with me, you really should put it through the submit thing, because you really have to actually acknowledge the terms and conditions. That's just how the world works. But definitely do it through that. This is essentially a set of videos, and I'll just continue to do this however long I do it. And there really isn't much more to say. This is the first one, obviously. Actually, this is the second one, that's a lie. The first one was actually a video where I kind of said some things, and I just wanted to see how this looked, sitting in the chair, the camera being right there. As you can see, I do have an office. This is a private office of mine. I have a desk, there's nature there, and I just think things are interesting. I think we live in a very interesting time. I mean, if you really think about the year, years are irrelevant. Don't even get me started at that. The years are so, there's absolutely no difference between the year of 3000 BC and 2015. Like zero. There's no difference. Like if you were in a spacecraft, roughly the distance of the moon, and you're looking at the Earth in 3000 BC, it would look exactly the same. The Earth would look exactly the same as it does now. Granted, not at night. Actually, it would look quite different. But within reason, time doesn't change, space doesn't change. It's just there. It exists, and then maybe someday it won't be. So that's why I don't like the idea of the years. I think years are irrelevant, and I think some people, when people talk about being progressive or advanced species and civilizations, that's really a bunch of it's really a bunch of bullshit. Time is relevant to whoever the observer is and where they are in their place in time, and it is also relevant to the thing that they are actually observing. So there's that. The year 2015 just says that, and we don't even know. We actually really do not know if if it's actually been 2015 years since the birth of Christ, which is when the clock switched over. I don't mean to get too religious, political, but we don't even know if Jesus Christ existed, so there's that. I'm not saying he didn't either way, or if he did. Just say we have no idea. We really have no idea. There's just a book written about his story, and there's information to say that he did exist, i.e. the Bible, and there's information that says that he didn't exist, which is there's not much information outside the Bible that he existed. But it doesn't really, I don't really care about that. What I'm trying to get at is that we think that we might have screwed up the years. Like, we might have totally done that wrong. Which is totally possible. I mean, we might be in the year 2019 by the standard, or we might be in the year 2011, or it might be like 2030. Who knows? No one really knows. And that's the thing that interests me, is things that you really can't know, because I think the idea of a human being, okay, Homo sapien, knowing anything is somewhat absurd. I mean, really think about it. Like, what is knowing something? I don't really know. Get it? Like, what really is knowing something? Like, do we really know what the sun is? No. I mean, it's a thing of hydrogen and helium. It's a ball of fusion. It's a reactor, essentially. It's all a sun is a bunch of atoms, that are, at the very top and the beginning of the periodic table, and it's just such a mass of them that the mass is so great that it collapses on itself endlessly and creates a fusion reaction. And when you create a fusion reaction, when you take two atoms and you collide them together, it creates a second element that has, now 2 protons or whatever, and it releases energy. That's the sun. And then there's gamma rays, X-rays. I mean, there's a whole the whole spectrum of radiation, X-ray, the radio waves that come out of it. That's really what a sun is. A sun is just a point in space in which there's a clump of atoms endlessly colliding into each other because of their own mass in the middle of space. And that's all it is. And for some reason, we have no idea. It has a gravitational pull, which is the only reason why this exists, right? I mean, this exists because there's many points in space that have a collection of atoms That's what a galaxy is. That's what a star is. That's what a planet is. That's what a moon is. That's what a comet is. And that's all it is. There's emptiness, and then there's something. But even empty is not nothing. I mean, if you take a look at a null space, right? If you take a look at linear algebra, you have the null vector. It's a vector space. It's a vector space that is null. It's an existence without anything in it, but it's still an existence. That's why I think quantum mechanics is interesting. Now, I'm not saying I know a lot about quantum mechanics. I don't. I did not major in physics. I get 2 different degrees, and they're not, well, one's an engineering degree and the other one's an applied math degree in economics. Which is, well, economics is a derivative of physics, but it's also, it's a economics is really a mathematical representation of potential laws and theorems that derive from physics and biology. But even then, that's a really broad statement. But because economics is a field that is derived, it's a subfield of the universe. I mean, all economics is economics is a set of mathematical equations that are used to describe observed interactions between individual participants. That's really what it is. And so what that also means is that economics exists for animals of any kind. Economics is not just constrained to human beings. That would be absurd. You know, if there was another civilization of aliens or some other existent set of beings, there'd have to be an economy, right? There'd have to be a finite limit of resources, finite number, and there'd have to be some observable interaction between these individual participants and the observed space that they inhabit, which is, I guess, their planet or their spaceship, and how they interact with each other, and how do they consume and allocate this capital. That's really what it is. How do they allocate capital and resources which are technically finite? Everything is finite, right? Because if something is infinite, it's not even quantifiable. But the Earth is certainly quantifiable, so the Earth is finite. The observable universe, at least everything that is at the edges of the observable universe and within, has to be somewhat finite. Or is that true? I don't know. I mean, we really don't know. There's a lot of math that says there's infinities in quantum mechanics. And we're talking about really small spaces in space and time. I mean, we can hardly even measure them. That's why they're infinitesimally small. But in terms of atoms and collectible atoms, there's a finite number of protons. There's a finite, within reason, that we can see. And no, I don't really know what I was talking about. Economics and derivatives of mathematics, and it doesn't really matter anymore. I really do kind of want to try to remember what I was talking about, because I kind of want to wrap things up somewhat holistically. Anyways, that's kind of my background. I didn't major in physics. I just think things in physics are interesting because they really do. I know what this is all about. Knowing things. Okay, how can you know something? Well, I mean, all knowledge is, all a book is it's ink on a piece of paper, and there's a collection of papers that, if you amass them or collect them in such a way on top of each other and bind them with string or glue or both, or whatever you bind them with, or you put on the ebook, that's different. That's just a big file. If you have if you have a book, right, it's finite. The data in it is finite. The information that can be abstracted from it is finite. Just take a look at the Bible. The Bible is certainly finite. And because something is finite, mathematically, only a finite source can only have a finite output, right? So there's only so much you can actually learn from the Bible. There's only so much you can actually learn from a physics book. There's only so much you can actually learn from a video like this, or any other video. Actually, you can't learn anything from a Kardashian TV episode. That's a null space of output. Technically, that's not true, but it's very close to zero. Same with Honey Boo Boo. Oh my God, that is. I don't like watching those shows within reason, but every once in a while, it doesn't hurt to watch it. Like that's just a bunch of. That's kind of a off topic. But how do you know something, right? All knowledge is, certainly to at least a human, it's data. It's just information. It's observed data, and sometimes that knowledge can be misperceived. Sometimes data can be falsified. That's for sure. I mean, I edit programs and computer files all the time, and I can easily, at the whim of my feet, well, I gotta be careful so I don't get fired at work. And not that I would purposefully do anything to falsify any kind of document work. There's no reason. There's nothing. It's a really boring job. I mean, I like it. We do interesting work. It's interesting. But it's not like exhilarating. There's nothing exhilarating about programming. Flying, it can be exhilarating. Surfing, it can be exhilarating. Jumping out of a plane is certainly exhilarating for a lot of people. Programming is not exhilarating. You sit like this, in a chair like this, and you just do this, all day long. But it's just a thought. What is knowledge? What is it? It's certainly an arrangement of neural structures in the brain. Let's take a look at human knowledge. I mean, let's take a look at the brain. Okay, what is a brain? Okay, a brain is just a chunk of tissue, and these tissues are cells, biological cells, and these cells have all kinds of dendrites and connections that connect each other, and these connections can be created and removed and taken away and strengthened and weakened. And if you read a book, then and you're expanding in knowledge. What you're really doing. Okay, your brain does this constantly throughout your life. I mean, I don't even care how low your IQ is. Your brain still does this within reason. Forrest Gump's brain certainly did it, and that's not a joke on Forrest Gump. I really like that movie, and that's a really important thing. And if you want me to talk about Forrest Gump, or you'd be interested to hear what I think about Forrest Gump, I'd love to talk about it. The side comment is that the interesting thing about Forrest Gump is that that's the whole point of the movie. Is that on the surface he was deemed stupid. He was an idiot. He was the town idiot. He had an IQ of 70 or whatever. He's below that line, whatever the line was at the beginning of the movie. Where Miss Fields comes in. I think that's the actress's name. She's talking to the principal, whoever runs the school. He's stupid. He won't do anything, right? Well, the interesting thing, that the whole point of the movie, the ironic thing about the movie, is he did everything that anyone could ever possibly do, and he did it well, and he lived, in many ways, potentially one of the most successful and happiest lives any person could ever experience. Why? How did he do that? He's stupid. Well, he can't be that stupid. And maybe life is not revolving around some of these things that we call intelligence or importance or success or money. It's a really good movie. It's meant to make you think. But aside from that, every brain has connections. It has connections in the mind, and it does things. And they rearrange themselves, and the whole point of why it rearranges itself is it's used as a tool to prevent death. It's an evolutionary process, okay? Like, we have brains to prevent us from dying. That's the only goal any organism has, is to not die. Every amoeba, every the amoebas don't have brains, do they? Every basic organism with a decent sized brain, the only reason why it's there, okay, and brains aren't cheap, okay, they're expensive. Our brains on average cost 1/3 of our entire caloric intake. They're expensive. Right? That's like being taxed by the government, okay? Imagine your entire income and 1/3 of it gone every day that you work. That's what the brain is to the body. So it's like, if you're going to be taxed this caloric intake, or expenditure, excuse me, you might as well better do something, especially for 33% roughly, which is why DC is so comical, because it does the antithesis of anything useful, most times, within reason, or does it? Anyways, it's expensive. Things are expensive. The brain's expensive, and so the only reason why it exists is to prevent us from dying. And the whole, if you're a dog, right? The dog's brain, or the dog has a brain, and it responds to stimulus. Okay, you have sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, whatever, hearing, whatever you want to add to it. There's not a whole lot, and the brain takes all of those data inputs, just like a computer does with a keyboard and mouse, or maybe a microphone. And it processes that data for a specific output. And that's why human beings, and people don't want to acknowledge this sometimes, or maybe they just don't think about it, is that, and this is somewhat of a Stoic statement, and this is definitely a product of studying economics as a degree, hold on one second. Okay, good, it's recording. I just wasn't quite sure. I don't want to keep talking if I was wasting time. because there's no light on this camera that says, hey, you're on or not. It's kind of a design fault. I don't like the user interface on that. The dogs, right? You have a brain, you have a dog. The dog has a brain. It smells scents. It smells chemicals or components of atoms that are in the air that are either related to food or related to danger or some kind of smell, and the brain processes that information to manage the dog's legs, the breathing, all of the other main functions. I mean, blinking, breathing, that's the lower part of the brainstem, but it does all those things purely to just avoid death. Avoid death, and that's all anything does. That's all anything is. That's all evolution is for. It's to avoid death. That's the only reason why we do anything. There's absolutely no reason to do any of this except to avoid death, except for the notion of reproducing. But that's stupid too, because the idea of producing is just another way to avoid death, right? It's like if you're an amoeba or some kind of organism that is asexual and you can just split off, right, and you can reproduce, you avoid death. Yeah, this other one might die, but if this new spawn comes up, oh, this thing might die, but not the continuation. And so then that's wild to think about, right? Like think about it. Like, yeah, we die, but we're not dead. Like, I mean, my cells, your cells, like your genetic information, that's just a continuum. That's really just a continuum from your ancestors, from your dad or your mom, and well, your dad and your mom, and their mom and dad, and their mom and dad, and their mom and dad, and you can go all the way to the very start of life. Correct me if I'm wrong, Google's right next to you. I don't have Google, I do, it's right here on the computer, but I don't have Google right now. You do. What was it, 1 billion years? Or, relatively first start of life? I don't know, something like that. On this planet, at least, that we think, that we know of. And so that's really interesting. It's just another mechanism. It's a mechanism of preventing death. And the whole point is that species that are successful and have a genetic relevance, those are the ones that don't die. Which you would be amazed. Well, I'm not going to go into that just yet. That's definitely very real. But sex is critical. It's vital to our existence, and sex is really important. And some people would like to disdown it, but it's not. It's really the only thing that allows us to exist, period. You can't exist without sex. I mean, granted, you can't exist without water and food. There's that too. But there are certain components that are base components or definitive requirements of life on this earth, and likely life anywhere in the universe. And reproduction is definitely, right there. It's important. So yeah, those are things. That's knowledge, and knowledge is interesting, or is it? I don't know. It'd be interesting if you think it's interesting. It's interesting to me. Anyways, this was a first video. This was kind of, I'm gonna call it quits. I got some homework I gotta do. God damn, it's so much homework. It's like 7:30. God, it's been a long day. I go to school and I go to work. I work 70, 80 hours a week right now. I work 40 hours a week. I'm a salaried software developer, but I'm also going to school for another degree, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to anything. This is what I think about. These are things I think about. These are things I talk about out loud, and I figured I might as well put a camera in front of me. Hopefully, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm literally doing this partly because I talked to my behavioral therapist, and even though this video is not in a direct, hold on, I really don't know how much battery is. Well, this is like, okay, I'm almost out of tape, but my memory chip, not tape.